Hello, my Crystal Loves Texas family. Thank you for joining us today. I am here with my co-host, my regular trusted co-host, Rebecca Williams.
Hi.
How are you, Rebecca?
Hello, everybody.
And I'm really excited today, guys, because we have got a guest in house. You have probably seen him before, or a couple of times before, on the Crystal Loves Texas podcast. But I have been talking with him recently, and he's got some really fantastic and awesome news to share, because he's always been a person who digs deep to do research. And today he's coming on because he is going to share with us part of his journey and his and I don't know if you would agree with me when I say this or not, my guest, but I believe your journey has a trajectory like it has had because of you being your own best advocate. I honestly believe that. Okay. But would you introduce yourself to us and tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and what you're going to be talking about today as we go forward talking about advocacy.
Yeah. Hey, thank you. Yes. Thank you for having me on, Crystal. My name is Dewayne Charleston. I'm born and raised in Prairie View, Texas. And, I'm a University of North Texas graduate, member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. And I'm going on 15 years of fighting prostate cancer. So I've been on disability for the last 10 years or so. But before that, I was the first Black judge in the history of Waller County. I was a writer in the governor's office, and I have been the publisher of my own magazine for the last 20 plus years. But fighting prostate cancer has probably governed my life for the last 12 or 13 years. And so I want to share today a little bit about how I have been able to sustain my health, with the grace of God, the prayers of others, and the type of lifestyle that I've had to live in order to sustain myself, and how important it is to get involved in clinical trials, and how I truly believe that where we're losing so many of our brothers is our inability to tap into the latest and the greatest of medical treatments, not just for prostate cancer, but across the board.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that I wanted you to come on and share, because we, as we're flipping through Facebook, as we're going through social media, as we're looking through magazines, we always see these different types of ads for trials. I think there's a trial that I saw that's going on today for people who are I don't want to say suffering with, but who are challenged by vitiligo. Mm-hmm. There are trials going on for many times for women who are have challenging menopause symptoms. So there are lots of trials. So before we even go forward a little bit, Dewayne, kind of give people a backstory on what a trial is.
Well, you've got you got drugs and treatments that are approved by the Federal Drug Administration. The FDA will approve certain things. Those are the things that your insurance will pay, that doctors in their areas especially can automatically give to their patients. And then you have drugs that are not approved by the FDA except for trusting. So in the phase 1, there will be some pharmaceutical companies may say we're going to do a phase 1, and they would design that only to test for side effects and tolerability, whether or not it will make you sick, for dosage. They want to know how much can we give safely to a person. That will be phase 1. They're not checking necessarily to see if it's effective or not, but just whether or not people will get sick by it. And then once you get into phase 2 and 3, they're checking more for how effective it is and how potent a portion you can give. And then the third one typically is to compare it to a standard treatment. So you may get one drug, and then the other half of the arm of that trial may be the new drug that's not approved by FDA, and then the other half will be what is standard and already approved by FDA. And so you typically 3 phases,
Hmm.
and it's concierge care. When you get into one of these clinical trials, I mean, especially for the brothers and sisters that don't have insurance, it's a
Right.
great way to get the best and latest treatment, especially, well, and that's not just for late stage diseases. This is for even the very early stages.
Right.
So, mhm.
And let's go back a little bit, Dewayne. Tell us what it was like for you when you found out that when you initially got this diagnosis, and what stage you were in, because that was 15 years ago.
Yeah, 15 years ago, I was having some issues in my life, and I thought I was having a heart attack, and I decided to go get a physical. And when I went to get the physical, I decided to go ahead and take this thing that I'd heard about called a PSA, and that
Uh-huh.
was a prostate specific antigen test, and it tests for prostate cancer. Men are
Okay.
supposed to get it tested at 40. I was 46, but I said, let me go ahead and get this test because I don't know what's going to
Right.
happen with me.
It was a matter of fact, kind of a matter of
Yeah,
fact thing.
yeah. And they called me the next day and they said, "Hey, we've been trying to reach you. We need to get you to come back in. We think your PSA is extremely high." And
Okay.
so I had been offered. Somebody called me from Aflac trying to sell me some cancer insurance about 2 years earlier. I was like, "Man, I ain't gonna get any cancer." I'm like, "I don't need no cancer." But anyway, so I'll go back in and 46 years old, and my PSA was at 86. Now, typically, men, your PSA should be 0 to 4. When it
Okay.
becomes 4 to 10, that's dangerous and highly probable for cancer. From four
Okay.
to 10 is dangerous and highly probable for cancer. Mine
Wow.
was at 86.4.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so the doctors were like, wow. So I go in and I take a biopsy. They took out 16 samples of tissue from my prostate, and
Wow.
all 16 had cancer. So
Wow.
then they did a scan, and I had it in my lymph node. So when I was diagnosed with stage 4 in 2009, diagnosed with
Wow.
stage 4 cancer, incurable
Wow.
cancer. The doctor comes in and he drops his head and he says, "Dewayne, I can't cure you, and nobody here at MD Anderson can cure you." And Dr. Lewis Pister said, "But there's one good new piece of news." And I said, "What's that, Doc?" He said, "God is still in the healing business." And he asked me and my then wife, "Do you mind if I pray?" And he got down on his knees. Dr. Lewis Pisters, who is still at MD Anderson, he got down
Wow.
on his knees, refused to do surgery, but prayed that God would heal me. That was in
Wow.
2009. And I
Wow.
walked out of there in a daze. I was like, wow, this is crazy. He wanted to do surgery.
Now, kind of take us on your journey, Dewayne, from the time that you received that diagnosis. What
Mhm.
was your first course of action? I know with me knowing you, as long as I've known you, you have never taken anything sitting down.
Yeah.
So I know immediately you started probably doing your own background research. What
Oh
was the
yeah.
step?
I began to read. The first thing they did, they give you a Lupron shot. And the Lupron shot is the first thing they get, and that's the standard care treatment for all men with prostate cancer.
The
It
Lupron
reduces
shot.
your
Okay.
it reduces your testosterone, and that's why most men don't like to talk about it. But it reduces your testosterone, and it makes you feel horrible. You get hot flashes. You're irritable.
Right.
It's likened to a woman who's menopausal or whatever, but it's absolutely
Okay.
horrible. You gain lots of weight and things like that. But I began to read, and I always think about Gail Sayers, who was my favorite athlete. And Gail
Right.
Sayers used to say, whenever he was running the ball, he was never concerned about the man that was right in front of him because he knew he was going to beat that. What he was
Yeah.
concerned about was that second tackler. And so, as I have fought cancer, I have never concerned myself with the treatment that I'm taking. I've always known that this was quote unquote uncurable. So I was always concerned about what's the next treatment? What's the next treatment? Most
Right.
people, when they fail a treatment, they just give up.
Right.
I have failed 6 different therapies, and when
Wow.
they told us early on that typically there are about 8 therapies, and the cancer will begin to outsmart it. So I
Right.
began to read and read and read and read and read, and I refuse to take chemotherapy. Maybe that's in my future, I don't know, but that's the one thing that I refuse to take. And I
Okay.
have done a lot of other therapies that 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 have worked, and I'm in my third clinical trial right now. And each one of those clinical trials has been just life-saving.
And the thing about it is, I know during your journey, you would explain to Kim and I about the entire process and the types of side effects that it caused.
Mhm.
And sometimes you were a little bit down, but one thing that we noticed about you is that you always said, whatever the side effect is, I'm going to do what I can naturally do to combat that side effect.
Right.
So if it was making you gain weight, you were running bleachers 5 o'clock in the morning over at
100
Prairie View.
degrees, yeah.
So you never said, I'm going to take this line down. You always immediately, you always chose life. Now you may have been different in private, but what we always saw was you never ever imagining yourself not being here, especially when your children were young and growing up, because at that time you had preteens and teenagers. Preteen and teenagers. And
I was in 46. I was young to be diagnosed, and there have been a lot of days over 15 years where I was literally depressed. There have been days when I did not want to get out of bed. There have been days when I looked at myself in the mirror and I had gained so much weight. I had just gained so much weight because of the depression. And when you don't have any testosterone, it's hard to maintain muscle. And I would have a pity party for 2 or 3 days, and then I knew, Dewayne, you've got to give your best body back to God to heal. You can't just give him anything. You can't just eat anything. You can't just live any kind of way and then say, God, can you heal this body? So I go into the gym. I drop 15 pounds, 20 pounds. I might have another shot or surgery. I had 4 surgeries. And those surgeries would always put me back, and I'd gain a lot of weight. Then I'd get back in the gym. I'd run in 103 degree weather. I remember when I was in Missouri, I would go running, and one time it was a -11, and I was running in -11 degrees in Missouri. And so no matter what the weather was, I felt like I have got to keep moving. And then so you always had to be on top of all the surgeries, be very, very aggressive. And so then there was the diet. So you got the medical part, you got the diet, you got the fitness. I started doing keto because cancer loves sugar. And anytime we eat anything that comes out of a box, it's going to turn to glucose and sugar. And so we shop it in the middle of the grocery store. You're buying cancer carcinogen type foods. And so I started getting rid of everything.
Say that again, because people need to hear that. When you're what?
Anytime you're shopping in the middle aisles of the grocery store, processed foods, anything that comes in a box is going to turn to sugar. If you stay on the edge of the grocery store, you're going to get natural foods, whether it be dairy, whether it be fruit, whether it be meats,
fish, chicken.
Anything around the edge is healthy. But the minute you venture into the middle of that store, it's processed. That's the way that it's designed. And so when you go in to take a scan, they inject your body with a glucose. It's a sugar because they know that sugar is going to go straight to wherever the cancer is. And then they make that sugar radioactive. That glucose is radioactive. And so then when they slide you in that scan, it's going to light up wherever the cancer is, because they know that glucose is going to go. The cancer is going to draw the sugar to it. And so if we know that that's the basic process for them to indicate where the cancer is, then why not just get rid of sugar? And that's a hard thing to do because we have sweet tooth and but I'll use
there's sugar in things that aren't even sweet. Like you said, there's sugar in pasta. There's sugar in rice. There's sugar in gravies. There's sugar in everything, like you said, that's processed.
And the simplest thing, I didn't mean to cut you off, but the simplest thing to do when you start talking about fighting cancer, any cancer, is to stay away from everything white. Your breads, your potatoes, your sugars, your flour, anything that is white is starch. It's gonna turn to sugar, and it's gonna immediately be metabolized by the cancer. So stay away from bread, sugars, potatoes, flours, anything that's white. And that's the best principle to go with the pastas. Oftentimes pastas are very light, but stay away from that. And that's the best measuring stick. Just to remember, stay away from anything white.
Dewayne, I'm going to bring this up because I know, we've talked about this before, and I know that you are okay with talking about it, but your journey hasn't always been a journey where your healthcare provider was your advocate. And I know that at one time my sister Kim and you went into an appointment, and and you ran into something that was very, very challenging. Can you tell us a little bit about that without mentioning
Yeah.
names and how
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
able to
I
get through
felt
that?
for years. I felt for years I was with a physician that where I was just really a number, and he didn't believe in my ability to be healed, and
Right.
he was just counting the days and giving me standard treatments. I was
Wow.
never introduced to clinical trials. I was never talked to like Dr. Pissers had talked to me. I was never treated like that, and I was miserable for about 8 or 9 years.
Wow.
Miserable. And then finally, I fought. I had a friend named Pam who helped me, and of course, Kim and Crystal to find another doctor. I found that other doctor. It was hard getting him, but I got him, and that makes a difference. And so then once I got with him, and then with another organization up in Boston, then I
Right.
was able to go out to Duke University. I was able to go to Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York. I started meeting different doctors, and what I found out, and I used to always tell everybody, I would rather die under the care of a doctor who cared than to live
Yeah.
under the care of a doctor who didn't. And
Wow.
so
I
when I
like that point.
started, yeah, so when I started going and getting these doctors had the confidence in themselves to say, hey, you should go see Dr. George in at Duke, or Dr. Morris in Memorial Sloan Kettering. You should go
Right.
see these other doctors. And then they start talking about clinical trials. So now they're passing you on away from their practice to something they feel where somebody else can help you.
Strongly
And I
about.
have the
Yeah.
greatest doctor in Houston right now, and Dr. Korn, because he is quick to encourage. He's at MD Anderson. He's quick to encourage me to go somewhere else or to try something else, to do something else. And I always love when I report back to him. And I have a good report this past month, this past
Yeah.
week, and I was
Yes.
able to report back to this doctor, and he will come back, and it's like he cares, and that means the world.
And
So yeah, it's important. It's important that you get a doctor who cares and who
yeah.
can talk to you. He calls himself Paul when he corresponds with me, not Dr. Corn, but Paul. Just a great
Wow.
guy. Mhm.
Wow. Rebecca, you had a question. You were about to ask Dwayne something. Go ahead. I didn't want to.
What was your aversion to chemo?
Well, whenever I did all of my studies, I found out that every time I'm studying, that if a person is chemotherapy naive, meaning you haven't had chemotherapy, people tend to fare better if they go on to another clinical trial and they've never had chemotherapy. From what I understand, that chemotherapy can break your DNA and it can affect your blood. So, for instance, a lot of guys can't get in the clinical trial I'm in right now because the chemotherapy has damaged their livers because of the blood.
Gotcha.
It's damaged their liver. And if you don't have a right hemoglobin count or platelet count, you can't
Yeah.
get into certain things. And so while chemotherapy may work for some cancers, for prostate cancer, I don't
Right.
think that it's the best thing. And by their own admission, it'll only give you like 3 or 4 months of extra living, and those probably would not be that quality. Even though the doctors have said that I would probably live well, or that I would probably do well for it, I just think that it causes. I think for me and for
Mhm.
people with prostate cancer, I believe, in my opinion, that it causes too much harm. But it's not. It's not to say that there is not going to be a time for it. It may
Right.
be great if I'm in bone pain. It may be great
Yes.
to alleviate bone pain or to give me the extra 3 months at the end that I might need, if I ever get to that point.
Right.
So I think that for some people it works. For some cancers, it's absolutely good for
Right.
prostate cancer, because prostate cancer is a slow growing cancer, and
Okay.
chemotherapy needs the turnover of cancer to go more rapidly for it to kill it. And prostate cancer is relatively a slow growing cancer. So I think for Black men or for men who are fighting prostate cancer, I think they would do well to really read the studies about about chemotherapy. And
Yes.
docetaxel is the number one, and it's for sure it's not your grandparents' chemotherapy. It's
Right.
better now. All chemotherapies are more effective now, but I
Right.
think they do more harm than good.
Okay. Well, Dwayne, let me ask you this. Now, this question came to my head when you were talking, and we know, like for instance, in breast cancer, there are many different types of breast cancer.
Hmm.
Prostate cancer, are there many different types too? Are some more aggressive than others, or is it basically the prostate cancer just at different stages?
Yeah, for 90% of men who get prostate cancer, they will beat it, and if it's caught early in time,
Okay.
you have a 95% cure rate.
Wow.
The problem is that's for people who get the PSA test and who go and follow it. But the
That's
vast majority of
Yeah.
Black men will not get tested, do not get tested. And when they do get tested, it's because they are showing some type of symptom,
Symptoms,
or
right.
and they've got blood in their urine or back pain, something like that. I had an 86.4, which was off the charts, and I had
Right.
not one single symptom. And so by the time most men get symptoms, it's all in their bones, it's in their lymph nodes, and then it's very, very, very difficult to treat and
Yeah.
impossible to cure. And so, that's um, it's an easy disease to beat if we would just get tested and treated
Right.
early. But then some of them are graded so low, it goes on a Gleason scale from 3 to 10. And if
Right.
you have a Gleason score of 3 or 4 or 5,
Yes.
you will die of something other than prostate cancer. Even if you don't get it treated, it'll grow so slow, you'll be 90 years old. But they do say that 80% of men who die by the time at the age of 80 to 90% of men will have prostate cancer when they die.
Wow.
But because some of it is just grown so slowly that
Wasn't discovered.
it's not worth treating. It's not
Okay.
worth treating.
Yeah,
But
I
if
was
it's
getting ready to
aggressive,
say my grandfather, well, my great grandfather died at 105, and that's
mhm.
what his diagnosis was, prostate cancer.
Wow, wow, okay, 105.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dewayne,
And you knew him.
since we got you here and we know that you will share information that needs to be shared, tell us about that prostate test, and please dispel any myths that men may have about it being just a horrible test. From what I understand, it may be a little uncomfortable, but it's not a long test.
I think it's
Yeah.
that manhood thing, though.
Well, you got several tests. The first one is the PSA test. It's merely a blood test, and
Okay.
the PSA, you come in, they prick you, they stick you in the arm, get a vial, and within 3 or 4 hours, they can tell you what your PSA is. So that's very simple. If that comes back elevated, then the next test they're going to want to do is a digital rectal exam. And the
Okay.
digital rectal exam is where the doctor feels for any nodules or any bumps on your prostate, and it goes through your anus, and it's not a
Okay.
very comfortable thing for many people. And culturally, it's kind of offensive to some people, and
Right.
and that's one of the reasons men don't like to deal with it. But it's very effective. But the problem with that is they can only feel one side of it. So if you rely on a digital rectal exam and the finger can't get on the other side of the prostate, you could miss cancer altogether.
Right.
And so you use the combination of the blood test plus the digital rectal exam. If both of those tend to say that you have prostate cancer, it could just be because you have an infection of the prostate. So you can't just automatically jump to the assumption that you have prostate cancer, because your PSA could be elevated because of an infection,
Okay.
and you could have a swelling of the prostate that would feel like it's swollen.
Right.
So then at that point, you go and you do a biopsy, and then they will take some samples, and that's incredibly painful and
Wow.
uncomfortable. And they'll take tissues from the biopsy. Once they take tissues from the biopsy, they can definitively tell you
Right.
if it's cancerous. And not only will they tell you if it's cancerous, but they can tell you just how aggressive the cancer is and whether or not you need to do some other therapy.
Well, you know what, Dewayne, I truly consider you you say that you like to have a doctor like the one that you have now, because he is so positive. But do you realize that he is probably saying the same thing about you? He can, even when men are late stage, he can hold you up as an example so that people do not lose hope.
Yes. Well, I think he does. I think he does. When I got on a thing called Radium 223. This is March. Last March, I was given 18 months to live.
Wow.
Last March.
Wow.
And the doctor said maybe a few more months, maybe a few less.
Right.
That was a doctor at UT Southwestern. And I left there and I was dejected. They put me out of a clinical trial. I had metastasis in my skull, in my upper and lower right jaw, and all of my ribs, throughout my spine, my right hip, my sternum, my clavicle, and my right shoulder.
Okay.
And a PSA that was 245.
Wow.
And so when they put me out,
were you taking medication at that time?
they put me out of the clinical trial. I was taking a drug called lutetium-177, which was the greatest, and they said that I had failed it, and so they put me out, and I didn't know what I was going to do, but I came back to
Right.
Dallas. I was kicked out of the clinical trial. And I remember we had that hot summer, boy. I started running and I was
Yeah,
like, well, Wayne, get back to doing what you can do. And that is eating
that's
right
right.
and working out. I lost 25 pounds last summer,
Wow.
just working out. And I figured I was going to beat this thing. So I
Right.
went out to Duke University, met with a doctor. He put me on a thing called Radium 223. And even before I was on the radium, my PSA started going down. My alkaline phosphatase started coming down, which determines how much disease you have in the bone.
Right.
And I remember going into Dr. Corn's office and he said, and this is absolutely remarkable. He said, with other cancers, we usually do multiple therapies at the same time, but with prostate cancer, we usually do one at a time. But
Right.
you're doing 4 different therapies at the same time. It's just absolutely remarkable. And he says, you're going to help thousands of men. You're going to help thousands of men. And it was about that time this magazine put me on their cover called Health Monitor.
Well, let's take a look at that magazine that you were talking about, Dewayne, because I want you to kind of tell us a little bit about that and about how you were selected to be on the cover of the magazine and what that was like.
Yeah, I don't, I like the magazine being on the cover, but I didn't really like them saying metastatic prostate cancer because I don't want to be the face of metastatic prostate cancer. But I get what they were saying, and they're talking about
But
how
let me
aggressive.
tell you why I don't think it's a bad thing, because it would be different, Dewayne, if they put a picture of someone who didn't look like Mr. T on the cover of the magazine. Now,
Yeah,
you were all beefed up, and if a man could look at that who has just been diagnosed and
yeah,
say, this guy has metastatic prostate cancer, he's lived 15 years and he looks like he's in great shape, he looks like he could play on a football team right now, then there's a lot of hope for me.
yeah. Hey, the best compliment I got is that my brother Carlin, when his wife showed it to me, he said, "Oh man, that's Photoshop." I didn't even, I didn't even
Oh, that's
say
a hater.
because Carlin is more fit than anybody in the NFL.
Yeah,
And
he's a bodybuilder.
I must look pretty decent if he says it's Photoshop. And I think he believed that too, but nevertheless, I'm fine. I'm fine with it. I think that it is encouraging a lot of people, and I have no idea how I was selected. There is believed that maybe some doctor recommended me to these people. We speculate, but we don't know. But I do know that they hired a writer from Alabama, and they rented out a gym for a photo shoot, and they sat down and did an interview with me. And it's a very powerful story. I share all of my trials and tribulations that led up to my diagnosis.
Right.
And so, but anyway, that was a great moment and stuff. And I've been blessed. Pardon?
What was that like? How did you prepare for this photo shoot?
I didn't.
Were you
I
already?
mean, clearly,
were you
there
already-
was not much for him to prepare for.
No, I'm gonna ask. Were you already this buffed up? Or
Yeah, that was. I took that shot. I took that. I took that in. That photo shoot came in November, and I had been working out for about 7 months straight, and I was on a drug called Radium 223, which was a drug that dealt with my bones, and so it didn't cause much fatigue. And so I was able to just kind of get in the gym, and I had been going straight. And fortunately, they called me right when I was at the peak of development. And so because there's some drugs that you get on that you can't, like the one I'm on now is very hard to keep your energy. But this was, and it was coming off of the summer and some warm months. So I felt pretty good. And I really wanted to just be able to encourage other people. If somebody look at that and they see this brother has stage 4 metastatic prostate cancer and my life expectancy was just barely over a year. But I was feeling good. Yeah, I was feeling good. Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, so going through the whole cancer, going through your
journey,
your cancer journey, I guess that's the word I could use.
Mm-hmm.
How I wanted to piggyback on your mental health.
Yeah.
Right. Because you get this diagnosis. First of all, you went in for a physical, and then, then they say, well, no, you need to get back here.
Immediately.
immediately, and then they say, hey, you got stage 4 cancer. They explain everything to you. So what is the thought process? Like,
Man,
what
you know,
is mentally?
I like to say that I was this ultra positive person. And I'm pretty sure people see me as that. But to be
Yeah,
honest,
you
you
are
know,
very much so.
there are a lot of days, man, that I had a lot of regrets. I had a lot of regrets about the way that I ate. I had a lot of
Right.
regrets about the way that I treated my body, how I didn't go to the doctor for 10 straight years, and I had health insurance. So I had a
Wow.
lot of regrets. And so I'm in the gym a lot of times and I'm mad. I'm depressed that now I'm facing, I don't know if I'll be, you know, alive if barring God's intervention and things
Right.
like that. I don't look 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. Now I'm starting to look a little bit more like it. But there were a lot of mental, lots of depressions, a lot of
Yes.
depression over the 15 years. And I
Right.
would just get my RV and I would go away sometimes for 3 and 4 weeks. And that's how I dealt with it, just to get away from everybody, to not be, people know when there's negative energy around. So I would
That's
get out
absolutely
there
right. Yeah.
and I'd start working out. And I was like, when I started feeling like I was going crazy, I would start up the thing and come on back into town. And so it's
So
hard, and it's hard.
did you
We went to visit Dewayne one time when he was out in the woods. Kim and I.
We had a good
Yeah, I
time.
know. I heard that
And
story.
they
I
took
was
they
like,
took a 3-hour hike and I took a nap.
I would have been right there with you. So how did you push through that mental health?
Yeah.
Did you have a therapist? Did you
Exactly.
have,
Yeah.
your frat brothers around to lift you up? I mean, what was the process going? How did you cope, and how did you?
I had a therapist at MD Anderson, and I must admit there were many days when I was crying.
Yeah.
I had my ex-wife. We had gone through a pretty bitter divorce, but she became
Right.
one of my biggest prayer partners. And
Yes.
I would call her, and we would talk through some things, and that was good to know that somebody who you had once been in love with and married to was still there to talk you through it. And of course, Kim and
Right.
Crystal, who I've been friends with for almost 50 years. And I ain't supposed to
You
be
have to
talking
put
like
that
that.
down.
But when we were in
Like
college, man,
that. Yeah, you ain't have to call.
I can call them and they would just listen to me. I remember one time I was asking Kim something and I said, was I a lot? She said, Dewayne, I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, you was about a 10. And so
Yeah.
I would listen to, they would listen to me, and they've been with me through thick and thin for a whole lot worse than prostate cancer, through my divorce and some criminal issues, legal issues, I should say,
Yeah. Yeah. Let's
that
say
I came
legal.
close to.
Yeah.
Alleged criminal stuff, but it's just a lot of stuff that I've been through, and I went through a whole lot. So I've had a lot of support, Jawanda Cochran, people that fight cancer, who have been there for me. Dr. Keith Crawford, a Purdue graduate and a Harvard oncologist, PhD oncologist, who has been immeasurable and who will call people all over the country.
Yeah.
And people don't know, how does this guy so connected? But it was through Keith Crawford, who then got me a job as the Texas ambassador for the largest health advocacy organization for Black men in the country, an agency called Prostate Health Education Network, FIN, out of
Yeah.
Boston, Massachusetts. And so I've had a good network of support. Trish and Pam and Renee, my kids, and just family that have surrounded me and stuff. And so, but they didn't see oftentimes the mental anxiety. They didn't see the depression because
Yeah.
I tended to try to spare them of that. But I would share it all out when I
Right.
got with the psychiatrist or with the pastor or some ministers,
Right.
something like that. But you do have to have an outlet. And so I used Corinne Bailey Ray and Frankie Beverly and Mays.
You going to the concert in a couple weeks?
No, I'm not gonna go because his voice ain't. Oh, let me be quiet.
So, okay, I have one more thing. Oh, so with all of that, so going back to the ambassadorship with the organization, can you tell us a little bit about that?
And tell us a little bit more about FIN and if people want to get involved with that.
Yeah. FIN, PHEN is the acronym, FIN, Prostate Health Education Network. These guys are out of Boston, and they advocate for Black men and prostate cancer in all areas of this. And it's just absolutely incredible. So every state has an ambassador. And our job as ambassadors is to book events like this, to go out to churches, to go out and speak. And they do a tremendous job. And most of the ambassadors are fighting prostate cancer or either prostate cancer survivors. And they get funded by all of the major pharmaceutical companies. And their job is to help men navigate. There has never been a time when I met somebody, I couldn't call Keith Crawford, who is one of the people over at Finn, that I could call him at 2 a.m, 4 a.m. And we have seen people be counseled by him. And I have seen men pass, after talking to them for 3 and 4 months, to see them die. And then you have to keep moving, but we can try to help them get into clinical trials. We can help them get support. And Finn is the leading organization for advocacy for Black men and prostate cancer. And it's just an incredible opportunity. I've been working for them for 6 months now. And if anybody needs me to come and speak at their church, anybody needs me to come and speak at their organization, I come for free, and my mileage is then reimbursed by Finn. So it costs nobody a dime to have me come anywhere in Texas to speak.
That's real good.
What I'm saying here, what I'm saying here to you guys tonight, and I'm a little bit more animated when I'm on stage, but
you are.
I mean, there's no reason.
Period.
Yeah.
But you know what, Dewayne? Here's the thing, and what we'll make sure that we do is get that information in the chat for Finn. And people, please listen to this. Especially, I know we have a lot of pastors who watch this program, this podcast. We have a lot of people who have affiliations at different churches who watch this program. We have a lot of African American people who watch this program, and a lot of men. So that fits everybody just about into a category where they could benefit from someone. And I missed one. We've got a lot of middle-aged people.
Hey, anybody who's listening to this program needs to know that you may be the only person standing between me and somebody in your church who already has prostate cancer and doesn't know it.
Exactly.
And you could literally save their life or give them a better quality of life if they're diagnosed early enough. And you, whoever's listening, may be the only person. And so an invitation from you can feel free to call Crystal. She'll give you my number. But
we'll post information too. Yes.
And I'll go for free.
That's awesome. And I know that we're going to get a lot of people who respond to that. Now we've got Kim who is on the line, and Kim says, did it seem that prostate cancer ran in your family? Did any family members have the aggressive type that you have?
Yeah, my uncle, my mother's brother, died of prostate cancer when he was probably 65 or 70. I have a cousin right now who just had surgery about 7 months ago, and he's still fighting with the prostate cancer. First cousin. I had another cousin, a second cousin, but really like a first cousin, who's a pastor in Dallas, who's fighting prostate cancer. My father had prostate cancer.
Wow.
And
also, it's genetic.
It's definitely in the genes. Definitely in the genes. And so if your father, brother, or uncle had it, then the chances are at least 25 or 30% that you will get it. And so if you get checked early, you could be cured. You get checked late, it may not end up so well. The quality of life is bad, if you wait too long.
Okay. Well, Dewayne, I'm just going to say this. I'm around you a lot, and you seem like you have got a pretty good quality of life. You go anywhere you want to go. You do whatever you want to do. You have friends all over the world, literally the world. And one thing that I can say is that you haven't allowed this fork in the road to stop you from traveling down the road and discovering life. You have not.
Yeah, because when I first met you a couple years ago, I never would have thought that you had any type of sickness. As a matter of fact, when Crystal first told me, my first response was he recently diagnosed? She was like, no, he's had it about a while now. Because, you're so upbeat. You're very active. You are extremely active. Physically active. This man moves like a 20-something-year-old. So it's just
listen, we have to be aggressive and fighting the disease. And one of the things that I'm very open about is like the surgeries that I've had, from everything is like if a woman gets breast cancer, she gets a mastectomy. Well, I've had prostate cancer. In order to beat the aggressive nature of what I had to get a penile implant. I had my urinary incontinence is regulated by another pump as well for just urinating. And these are things that are extremely uncomfortable, very painful when you were doing the surgery, and not very natural and stuff. And so I had to get radiation to my breast because the Lupron causes the low testosterone and causes, what is it called? Yeah, breast enlargement. Gynecomastia. And so that's not a very attractive deal. So I might look good, but man, you got to go aggressively, and you got to fight it every single day to create a good quality of life. And life is good, so it's worth the fight. But I thought I'd just share that so that I don't want people just to think that, hey, man, this dude got it made. No, man, I'm fighting it every single day, and I believe that everybody else can benefit. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is a personal question or not.
Well, if it's too personal, don't ask. Okay.
But if somebody is no, it's related to the topic. But so. How do I ask this? Okay, so if like you said, one of the things was your testosterone was very low. So they have testosterone replacement therapy. Can somebody get that while no?
I wouldn't think so.
Hey, listen, testosterone. If you give a man testosterone and he has prostate cancer, that's like pouring gasoline on fire.
Okay, well, that's what I was saying.
Testosterone is what cancer needs to survive. And so you can suppress it. You can suppress it for years. But once you suppress it, eventually the cancer will learn how to grow without it. And that's called hormone resensitive prostate cancer. And that means that the cancer no longer needs testosterone to grow. And when you get to that point, it's really bad, because my cancer right now, it could care less if I have hormones or not, or testosterone or not. But at the same time, they have to keep it suppressed, because if it ever gets loose, then it's a wrap. So.
Well, Dewayne, you know what? One thing, and I'm gonna circle back around to this, because one thing that you told me, and that I will always stick with me, is that. And this is what I've observed just in watching you. Your entire, the way that you live life changed once you were diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that in a positive way. There's not anything that I hope that you don't mind me saying this, okay? But you sold your house, you bought an RV, and you said, I'm going to see the world.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, because a lot of people, we're so connected to our things.
Hey man, listen, stress is one of the things that will take you out, and it will, and stress will break your immune system down. And as stress begins to break your immune system down, the cancer can get a foothold. So I started doing comedy clubs. I started traveling. I've been to been to Europe twice. I've been to Africa twice, all in the last 10 years. And so it's been a lot of fun. I've been camping. I've probably spent 25% of my days in the last 10 years out camping. And that's a lot of days and stuff. And so you just have to have some fun. You got to get around some positive people. I stopped returning a lot of people's phone calls because
stress.
Because I could get all into politics. I stopped talking politics, not forever, because I'm hoping that eventually I can deal with it more, but it's too intense for me at this moment. The way that I used to do it.
That's
and so
right.
I gotta laugh. I gotta live.
That's right.
And I like doing that. And I like to speak. I'm loving to speak, and the opportunities that I get to speak and share my story like this.
And that's interesting. And with that in mind, tell us a little bit about this event that's coming up. The Clinical Research and Engagement Conference that is coming up. That's just right around the corner. Tell us about that and how people can get involved if they want to.
Yeah, I and quite a few other people will be speaking at this clinical research conference. I think it's sponsored by the pharmacy department, the School of Pharmacy at Texas Southern, and they're going to be talking about all things clinical trials, cancers, a lot of cancers. I think there's like 3 people from MD Anderson that are going to be there, and I'm going to be sharing my story about my journey for clinical trials and how
Yes.
clinical trials have been difficult for me to get in. I've been kicked out of them, and I'm in one currently right now that is just absolutely cutting edge
Yes.
for advanced prostate cancer. So I'll be sharing that story. And if you're a leader of an organization, or if you are interested in how you can spread the word, you need to come to this conference. I love the way that Texas Southern has promoted it. I love the way they have gone about it, how professional they have been. And the lady who invited me happened to be on a Zoom call with me. And she messaged me during the middle of the Zoom call and said, "We've got to have you come to Texas Southern."
Yeah.
And so it'll be my second time speaking in Texas Southern. But this will be probably the greatest opportunity that I'll have to speak in Third Ward about this clinical trial in prostate cancer.
And, so the takeaway, Dewayne, Rebecca, and for the people who are watching, I would say what I really wanted the takeaway from this podcast to be, because this is a serious podcast,
Of course.
but what the takeaway should be is that you have to step forward to be your own best advocate. There
Absolutely.
are, and let's be clear, there are going to be some clinicians, some doctors out there who are going to post their flag on standard care that's been done for the last 50 years.
Sure.
And you have to, if there is nothing wrong with you asking questions and you going and getting second opinions, you doing your own research. And if a doctor is not seeming as though they want to understand or to consider what you are saying, especially if they've exhausted everything that they have considered to be standard care, that you step forward and say, well, listen, I have researched this, and will you stand behind me in trying to get into this? Will you yeah. And how would people go about getting their doctors to advocate for them when it comes to that? Do they need to write letters?
No, I think if you're like me, I get up to gospel music, and after I've done my gospel music, I type in prostate cancer news, and I'll see every single day what is the latest thing that has come out. Wow. And I bet I probably read 10 or 15 articles every single morning. And to the point where there won't be any new ones on there because they'll be 3 days old.
Yeah.
And so I stay on top of it. So even after I learned about lutetium through that, I learned about actinium through that, I learned about Xtandi, I learned about Zytiga, I learned about all of that. And then I'll call Dr. Crawford up at Finn, or I'll call my doctor, and they'll say, "Oh yes, this is new and this is good." And so that's what I do. And so I educate myself. And I know that everybody doesn't have the time, or everybody didn't wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning like I do.
But your life is worth the time.
Yeah. And so I think with it, when I can do that reading, I think that's what uniquely equips me for being able to speak to other people. And, everybody's prostate cancer is different. But one thing that I do know is that we all serve the same God, and we all are called to eat pretty much the same diet. And we can all do some level of fitness, and we can all find somebody who can pray for us. And that's where we're all even. And those are the things that I think have helped me to stay alive. And so I can at least speak on that with a degree of certainty. Mm-hmm.
And Dewayne, I want to leave everyone with this thought that, like you said, your journey has not been without challenges. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't want anybody to feel that way, but when we show those pictures of Dewayne, when we show what is possible, when you look at Dewayne and you see that do you mind saying how old you are, Dewayne?
I'm 60.
That at 60 years old, through battling through the challenge of prostate cancer, he can still walk around Houston, Texas, America, the world, looking like this. Then there's hope. There is hope. There is something to fight for, and that's something that we definitely need to be able to latch on to. Dewayne, if people want to reach out to you themselves to book you for events, or to have you come and speak, or to do you sit with and mentor people who are?
Absolutely, man. I talk to people every single day. Brothers that are at home in the hospice, brothers that don't know where to go. People call me all the time. And
Right.
sometimes I'll back off or something like that. But I've been in dinners, I've been in concerts where I had to take somebody's phone call.
Right.
And so I love it. So let me give you my number. I'll say my
Yes.
number for anybody who's ready to write it down or ready to remember it.
And
feel
we'll
free
also
feel
post
free to give me a call, but you probably want to text me, because I won't just answer every call. But if you text me, then I'll get back with you. But I'm at 281-508-0222. And again, that's 281-508-0222. You can call me, but best off if you text me and tell me who you are and what you need, and I'll be
Right.
happy to get back with you, and we can go to the gym together. All right.
Any social medias or email?
Facebook is pretty much it.
Okay.
Facebook,
How would they connect on Facebook? What is your
Dewayne
name?
Charleston. Dewayne Charleston. There's 3 of us in the country, and so you can see you see
That are
this
on
goatee.
Facebook. That are on
You see,
Facebook.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you'll see this goatee, and
We got to get you an Instagram, Dewayne. We got to
Yeah.
get you an Instagram.
I know it. I don't need another addiction. Wait, did that come out right?
No, that didn't come out right. That didn't come out right.
Typical D.
But
Right.
I do want to throw this. You told me something this afternoon when we were talking, and it's just a teaser, but it's a teaser. We are going to bring you back on here, and soon, because you said that you had something promising that looks promising that you wanted to talk about. So
the drug I'm on.
Yes.
Okay.
But we're and the type of success they've had with it.
Good. I want to come back for Father's Day.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Father's Day.
So before we go, we have had a viewer on here that's been watching the whole time. Rebecca, you want to tell us a little bit about what Kim has had to say?
Oh God, I can't see.
Kim says Dewayne has gone through the fire. He is a prostate cancer warrior and knows the subject well. Yes, connect with him, guys. She says Dewayne always said that when someone gets a cancer diagnosis, they don't just need to get a church membership, they need to get a gym membership. I like that. Those two go hand in hand, because that's part of advocating for yourself. Kim says, you look great, Dewayne. She also asked, did it seem that prostate cancer ran in your family? You answered that for us. Did any other family members have it? And obviously we saw that there was definitely a familial connection in there for you. But you also made a point that at some point, especially as men get older, we know that most men are going to suffer from an enlarged prostate. And a lot of times, like you said, that can be, even if it's post-mortem, it can be discovered that there was some degree of prostate cancer there, even if it may not have been what killed them.
That's right.
Okay. She says you have to fight for your own health. And she says, this has been great information. And that was Kim. Thank you, Kim. And I encourage anyone who's watching, please go ahead and put comments. If you've got questions for Dewayne, you can do it anonymously if you want to. Post those comments in the comment section, and we'll make sure that he is able to get back and answer those questions for you, or maybe even connect with you. But Dewayne Charleston, I want to say this. Thank you. When I saw that flyer come across my text messages, I said, we've got to get Dewayne on, because no one knows clinical trials and self-advocacy when it comes to healthcare like Dewayne. You are the guy who was not going to take no for an answer.
Yep.
Bottom line. You were just not going to take no for an answer. And we can all get something from that type of attitude.
Sure.
Dewayne, if you can leave us with 3 words of encouragement that you can for someone who may have just gotten a diagnosis, what would you say?
Diet.
Yes.
Medicine and spirituality.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
And
Diagnostic spirituality.
yes, and Gisette just came on and she says, I too, I congratulate you, Dewayne. I am also a cancer survivor. Awesome. Awesome.
Great, great. Thank you.
Well, Dewayne Charleston from Prairie View, Texas, by way of Austin, by way of all these other, the state house, writing for the governor. We want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us, and even more so than that, for volunteering to be a shoulder to lean on for someone who may be getting that diagnosis soon, or who may have just gotten that diagnosis. It's not the end of the world. This is the time to start fighting. Am I right?
Did he freeze that?
I don't know. I think he may have frozen up. But anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And as we say, Rebecca, we can do it.
Bye.